the 2015 World Series. Maybe you're reading the review of the Royals Championship this week on kansascity.com or catching the replays on Fox Sports Kansas City. Game 5 is tonight, by the way. On SportsBeat KC, the Stars Daily Sports Podcast, we're going to remember it today, Thursday, May 21st, with some of the writers who covered every game of the postseason in 2014 and 2015. Star columnists Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian are here, and so is Andy McCullough, the primary Royals beat writer for the Star in those years. Andy now covers baseball as a senior writer for The Athletic, and he'll bring you up to date on his career early in the conversation. It was a wonderful time for the Royals, and we had a blast covering those games, as I think you'll hear. So here's Andy, Sam, Vahe, and me, Blair Kerkkhoff, on those Royals, and make sure to stick around to the end to hear Andy's press box adventure on the night of Game 5 in New York. Here we go. Andy, it is great to talk to you again. Glad to have you back. Tell us what you're doing now. We know that you're working for The Athletic, but you're not covering baseball on a daily basis. Take us through what you're doing now.
I don't know what it is I'm doing. I mean, I'm trying to stay employed, like everyone at this point. I guess my technical job is I'm a national writer for The Athletic, and so I just try and find interesting stories about baseball that Ken Rosenthal hasn't already broken. It's good. I mean, it's great to finally have colleagues I respect. I just, I try. I've been just trying to write interesting stories about baseball. It's been a pretty fun job, so far. I mean, being based out in LA, I still write a good chunk of stuff about the Dodgers and things like that. But I've found myself, more than once during the pandemic, kind of looking back on things that happened with the Royals and writing about them, because I think, those teams from 14 and 15, when I was fortunate enough to be covering the team for the Star, were, the most interesting teams I've ever been around. And I doubt I will be around teams that are, more fun than those guys were on a day-to-day basis. And so, doing a lot of trips down memory lane these days, a lot of remembering guys professionally.
And podcasts about remembering baseball and World Series. So, so great segue. So thanks for setting that up for us. And so we are here to talk about the 2015 World Series run for the Royals. And look, it's not even been 5 years. I mean, if we were waiting for the 5-year anniversary, we'd wait until October. But the pandemic has made us do strange things. And so in May, we're remembering the 2015 run by the Royals, which, as I look back on, and I'm watching some of the games on Fox Sports Kansas City here, and I just am reminded of, as you said, just what an amazing run it was for the entire 2 years, but especially the 15 run. That how improbable today it seems that a team that didn't hit with a ton of power, that didn't pitch with a lot, starting pitching anyway, wasn't as fearsome, or probably they turned over their rotation from 14 to 15 practically, but how that team managed to get it done, and in 15 get it done in a way that they weren't pushed to a deciding game in either the ALCS or the World Series. Andy, when you look back on it, what is it? What was it about these Royals teams that made them what they were?
It's a question that gets honestly, it becomes tougher and tougher to say that the further you get away from it, because if you look at the baseball reference or whatever, things like that, you're like, yeah, that seems like a good team. Yeah, they had a lot of good players and a lot of guys had some good seasons. But being around them every day, I felt palpably that they were the best team in baseball that year. I felt like there was not a team in baseball who they could not beat in a 7-game series. They should be the favorite in every 7-game series because of the brand of baseball they played, right? They did things, they played a style, and they played to that style pretty much close to perfection. I mean, they didn't strike out a lot. They caught the baseball. They ran very effectively. They had lots of different guys who could run. They could go first to third. They had some really, really effective hitters in Ben Zobrist and Lorenzo Cain. Their pitching staff, their starting rotation was underrated, and their bullpen was tremendous. It's weird. I mean, they were not a super team in the way that we have super teams now, just several years later. And I think the landscape of the sport has shifted so much that so many more teams are tanking in 2019 and 2020 than they were in 2014 and 2015. But they played to their style of baseball as well as you could, and but they are also at the same time totally anachronistic. Like it feels like another lifetime ago in terms of how the sport is played, in 2019. So it's a tough question to answer. I'm curious what you guys think.
What say you, Sam? Vahe?
Well, no team has challenged my stance that chemistry is overrated more than that team as well. There really was. I mean, and some of that, I think, is what, Andy, what you were just talking about with they had a brand, they had a style, and they played to that. And there's a certain chemistry in that as well. And sort of all buying into the same thing. Were they last in the league in home runs?
In 14, I think in 14 they were.
In 14, okay.
Sure.
And it was just such a, in some ways, just like a middle finger to how the game was being played. And, gosh dang it, if they didn't pull it off. And there was one thing that really sticks out to me is there were a lot of people that was calling the Royals lucky. And that it was all like bloopers and, little flare hits that turn into 8-run rallies and stuff like that. But they took advantage of that stuff, and that was sort of their styles to do that. And that I remember Dayton specifically, and there were other guys in that front office as well. But I remember Dayton specifically just getting so irate at he must have read something or heard something, somebody specifically calling them lucky and calling it a fluke. And he said something like, I guess that trophy's a fluke. I guess that trophy that we have just doesn't exist. It's just magic. It's made up. And they started to take it pretty personally, which I think was part of the charm.
Similar to what you guys are saying. I mean, it's funny. The parts were pretty good, right? But they were still better than some of their parts. And it to your point, Sam, about chemistry, we've certainly seen teams have what you might think of as great chemistry that aren't any good, and vice versa, teams with no chemistry that win and despise each other. But there was something particular about this energy, and I think that has something to do somehow with the knack for the comeback that this team had. I mean, there was some kind of culture there that made 6-7 hits in a row possible when you're down 4 runs in the 8th. I don't think that stuff was fluky. It's sort of like the point you made about Dayton. I guess, that all those hits were a figment of somebody's imagination too. So I think that was the thing that defines that team for me. And, beyond that, thinking about the comebacks within each game, but also how the team was made up of, its essence really was a lot of guys who had for lack of a better term, adversity, whether it was, Alex Gordon having to have his position changed, or Moustakas being sent down, or Chris Young and others with Kendrys Morales with debilitating injuries. These were a lot of guys who'd been through some things, and I think that was part of their gateway to where they went.
Yeah, I mean, everyone on that, basically all of their star players, outside of maybe Giordano Ventura, had kind of been given up on at various points in their careers. Yeah. Maybe that's a little strong for Hosmer and Cain, but you're right. Moustakas, Edison Volquez comes to mind as a guy who, was more or less a retread a few years before. Jeremy Guthrie was a guy who had been, basically cast aside by the sport in some ways. Luke Hochevar was, someone who was considered essentially, is that how you pronounce his name, by the way? Is it Hochevar?
No.
Where have I been?
I really like your pronunciation.
Go back to it.
That was great. I actually reverted to covering the Mets in 2010, being like, man, what are the Royals doing with Luke Hochevar? It sounds like I wasn't around the guy for 2 years. Anyway,
that was the French pronunciation that you were using.
Yeah, that's his alter ego who became a starter. Anyway,
We just go with Hoach.
Hoach, yeah. There's I can't believe I did that. There's a lot of guys though. You're right, who like had stuff taken away from them, and I do think the combination of the chemistry and also their style was meant to exploit mistakes. The entire point of the Royals was that baseball was difficult and that if you make a mistake, they're going to make you pay for it. And they continuously did that. I mean, they played teams. They got a good draw in the Mets because the Mets couldn't really catch the baseball. And they found a way to, whenever someone on the Mets sort of botched a fielding play, all of a sudden 3 runs were home and they had won the game. And I think that is, on the one hand, yeah, it's good luck, but it's also, building a team that understands what its strengths are and knowing how to take advantage of them.
The Mets also had the power arms in the rotation, and the Royals weren't a strikeout team. They weren't a swing and miss. Yeah. They weren't a swing and miss team. So, Harvard get 2 strikes on Morales or Kane or whoever, and the Royals would end up putting the ball in play and putting some pressure on the defense. I think that was a pretty underrated aspect of Royals baseball in those years, was just the aggressiveness with which they not only they ran the bases, but also in the batter's box, and that served them pretty well.
Yeah, and this can't be. We've already mentioned it, but I don't think it can be emphasized enough about that bullpen, because I remember going up through 2014, like before the playoffs started, and just kind of everybody did this, right? You think about like how the team's built. And you just think, my God, with those guys at the back end, this should be a better postseason team than they are in the regular season, just because, those guys will be able to pitch every night. And, if you're tied, you're winning, in the 7th inning or later with those guys. And they were even better, I think, than anybody could have imagined.
Yeah, I remember after the wild card game in 2014, just kind of sitting in the press box, we're all just sort of like exhausted or whatever. And I was kind of just thinking like, wait a minute, they're not going to lose. Yeah. They're going to beat the Angels. It kind of played out that way, where their back end was so effective that if they scratched together a couple runs, like they were in a good spot.
Did you really feel that way? I mean, they go up against, I know we're going back to 2014 and leaving the World Series for a moment, but I think you have to take the Royals in their entirety here, 14 and 15. But, they win the wild card game, and then they go play the team with the best record in the American League in the Angels, and, have to go there. To me, it was the outfield defense that freaked out the Angels in that series, and they couldn't get anything, down in the outfield because of plays by Aoki and Dyson, and I mean it was crazy. And Lorenzo Cain diving all over the place. I just thought that set the tone.
Circuitous as it might be with Aoki.
Yeah,
just a blindfolded catch against the Angels. That was crazy.
For some reason, I was looking through old tweets and I saw one that said like, "Imagine Nori Aoki trying to get out of a maze," and that like really brightened my day just thinking about that image. I mean, yeah, like they had. I mean, their strengths matched up really well with what the Angels were kind of doing. The Angels were a team that had good hitters, but didn't have a lot of home run power. And so they were going to be kind of putting balls in play, and the Royals could run down a lot of them, it was a good draw. I mean, their weakness, if they had one, I'm sure they had weaknesses, but their biggest weakness was was against like left-handed starters, and outside of one from San Francisco and Dallas Keuchel, they didn't really run into a ton of those over those 2 years.
No, they didn't. And the other thing, and maybe this goes a little overlooked, is that Royals lineup went right, left, switch right, left. You couldn't. It really didn't matter who they were facing. And you're right, Bumgarner obviously shut him down several times in the World Series. But there was some really nice balance to that lineup, so much balance that you got Escobar hitting leadoff and Gordon and Rios hitting 8 and 9 in 15. So you've got a guy who how often did Escobar hit leadoff in his Royals career? Was it the last couple of months of 14 and then the playoff runs of 14 and 15?
That was hilarious, by the way. Like the best part was Ned just basically telling Andy, like, I don't know why it works. Like, I understand it shouldn't work. This is not what should be happening, but watch.
Yeah. There was a game, I remember I want to say it was in Chicago, and they've been going through this will they or won't they thing with moving Esky back to the leadoff spot because, by all accounts, like either Alex Gordon or Ben Zobrist should be leading off. It's crazy to do anything else. And Ned was just like, he'd been flirting with it for a couple of days. You could tell like he wanted to put Esky back there. And that night they played the White Sox, and they've been going kind of rough for a little while, and they won the game because Eric Hosmer hit a home run in like the 10th inning or something, and afterwards Ned's like, this is why we got to have Esky in the leadoff spot. And I was just like, Ned, you won because Haas hit a home run. He's like, no, see, Andy, you don't understand. And I was just like, okay, like, so here, like, just so you know, Royals fans, the best team of your generation is going to have its worst hitter leading off, getting more at bats than everyone else in the postseason. Hope you're ready. And by God, it worked.
Crazy how it worked. It was the ALCS MVP in 15. So let's go back to the World Series in 15. So the Royals go in. So did you get a sense that this was the Royals World Series to lose? Or I was looking at some of the national commentary, and it was kind of a toss-up. I think if you were in the East, you thought the Mets would win. Anywhere else, the Royals would win. But I just the way the Mets had won the NLCS, they'd swept the Cubs, never trailed in the four games. I thought the Royals might be in trouble going up against the Mets, but apparently I didn't watch enough Mets baseball that year to fully understand and appreciate just kind of how vulnerable the Mets could be, and the Royals took advantage of it pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were going to win in 5 or 6 because of the strength of the Mets was right-handed arms, and that was just something the Royals did not struggle with. That they could pretty easily solve right-handed pitchers, and that's more or less what they did. And then there was also the defense factor for the Mets, which proved huge in later in the series.
Bless his heart.
Yeah. future Royal.
Yeah,
that's right.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners: unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
Runner at third, 1 out. Broken back. Cut off by right. Out. Throw home. Wild tie game. Unbelievable base running by Eric Hosmer has tied it. They keep finding ways.
What about the game one in the World Series goes 14 innings. Alex Gordon hits the home run in the 9th inning off of Familia, and I suppose if there was a defining moment of the series, it was the 9th inning home run that tied the game. I don't know if I'd felt any differently if the Mets had gone on to win that game, but it was certainly a critical moment, and we're. In fact, next week we're unveiling the top 25 moments in Kansas City sports history, and the Gordon home run will find a prominent position in that on that list. And Sam, I know you're working on a feature that has the top 50 influential. How will we describe it? What it is?
The top 50 most influential people in Kansas City sports history. And
history.
Yeah, do not try to do this at home. This has been like,
oh no,
God dang it.
Oh no.
I'm ready for this thing to just post and never think about it again. Good grief.
But I was going to say that the 14-15 Royals are pretty well represented on this list, are they not?
They are. I mean, I feel like that group. I mean, they changed Kansas City's relationship with baseball. And look, I know we're doing this show ostensibly about the 2015 World Series, but just it's important to remember just how terrible and irrelevant and often incompetent the Royals were before this period of time. And it became like sort of the background noise in Kansas City about, they got a Major League Baseball team, they got uniforms and everything, right? Like they'll play and whatever, but just don't get your hopes up, and every once in a while they'll have a fluky team that goes 83 and 79 in 2003 and people still remember, just a mediocre group like that. And this group, and I think they had to be like this, but they were just brash. You know what I mean? They felt like they could do anything. They got under opponents' skin, especially in 2015. Benches cleared like every other Tuesday, it seemed like. And but I feel like they had to be like that because if, look, maybe this is just like projecting, but, being in Kansas City and around that team in some of the worst years, it felt like it was just people expected to lose. They just knew they didn't have much of a chance. And they needed a group, I believe, that sort of looked at that as an opportunity. And that was Hosmer and Moustakas at the top that just, sort of, oh, okay, you guys haven't won here. Well, this is going to be great when we do it. And when they busted through, it was all sort of emotions and, bat flips and chest pounding and all that stuff. And I think the whole thing needed that sort of attitude.
Just a couple of weeks ago, Vahe and I had a chance to spend, about an hour on the phone with Ned Yost at his Georgia farm. And it was a delightful conversation. Andy, how many times have you talked to Ned? Have you caught up with him here in the last few months?
I spoke to him in early April. Yeah.
Wasn't there some Tiger King stuff, Andy?
He hadn't watched it though, so I was, he didn't seem like his life was all that different in the pandemic. He was on the farm.
That's true. But how did Ned come out of these 2 years? I mean, what I remember about the Ned narrative was they somehow beat the Angels, and all of a sudden you got the Dunce going against the genius in the ALCS with the Orioles.
The Wall Street Journal called him a dunce
in a headline.
That was great. Oh man.
He's only the winningest manager in postseason baseball history.
I think Ned did some things that were inefficient managerially. I think would be the way to describe it. At the same time, he also, I think he trusted the players. He didn't put his players in positions to fail all that often. I will say that. You do see guys set their players up for failure and ask too much of them and ask them to do things that maybe they shouldn't be. And he didn't do that all too often. There were he had more. What would it be? Less sort of reactionary issues tactically. It was more like, why is your lineup like this? Type of stuff. But there was very rarely. There were not too many games, and maybe I'm like misremembering it, but especially in 2015, there were very few games where I was like, what in the world is Ned doing? And that's something that if you watch the postseason almost every year now, right, you see managers do stuff where you're like, what? Why is he doing that? And with Ned, it was more, they were kind of a push button club in some ways, bullpen wise. And so he trusted those guys. They did a really good job of, I think he and Dave Island, the one thing that they deserve a lot of credit for was how they basically kept the bullpen from breaking down in 2015. They kept Wade Davis, who was kind of nursing an elbow thing all year. They kept him healthy and ready to go in multiple innings in the postseason. And so I think that's something that they really excelled at and were ahead of the curve on, and how bullpens will be used in the postseason. But yeah, I mean, Ned goes from a guy who, when I got to Kansas City in January of 2014, like people just wanted to know when they were going to fire him. I was like, when is this guy getting fired? Like, we need a new manager in here. And I was like, well, he has some issues with lineup construction, but he's funny, and like I enjoy like fighting with him every day. So I don't know. And then they might put a statue out front of Kauffman Stadium of him. These like in 10, 15 years. So it's a remarkable turnaround for sure.
And Vahe, I just remember the conversation we had where you did live with some of Ned's, not mistakes, but he lived with the mistakes of his young players early in their careers, and something that served him well later on.
Yeah, I think, Blair, that and you and Sam probably can attest to that. More with more detail in some ways, having been here when a lot of that was going on. But I do think that over time, the idea of going ahead and playing Escobar through things and things like that. I mean, look, the guy was the AL Championship Series MVP, for crying out loud, and so what if he couldn't get a bat on the ball in his first 2 years? I mean, surely there was some relationship between priming the pump and getting to that moment, and I think that Ned's stubbornness was probably a big part of his success. Right? Sometimes it probably blinded him. And Andy, I seem to remember, I think, along the lines of the point you just made, I think more often in 14 and 15, you would feel surprised at his inability to be more flexible, actually. Like why isn't he going to go ahead and let Wade pitch 2 innings or things like that?
Yeah.
But at a certain point, he just became a real creature of habit. And I think of perhaps I don't know, of symbolism, right, with the silly Escobar leadoff stuff. But there was some kind of mojo to Ned in the end. And by the way, I just want to throw in, I really enjoyed the bickering between Andy and Ned all the time. I mean, it was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Especially in the postseason when it went to the next level. I thought
yeah, my favorite would be when he would be at the podium and I would raise my hand and he would just start answering my question before I'd even given it. Because it was like invariably like about the roster, or just like I didn't care. Like I just needed to fill out my notebook. Like I didn't care if the first question was like, so why is Christian Colon on the roster? And he would just be like, I'd raise my hand and he'd be like, Andy, we took Jason Nix because he can play multiple positions. All right.
And look, he was usually right, wasn't he? He was like Radar O'Reilly and Colonel Potter.
And then the next question will be like, Ned, this is the first time Kansas City's had postseason baseball since 1985. What does it mean to the city?
Ned, who'd been in the city since 5 years,
right?
So. All right. Hey, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Zobrist left the Royals, became the World Series MVP for the Cubs in 2016. Has any other Royals? The only Royals left from the 2015 team are Salvador Perez, Alex Gordon, Danny Duffy, and Greg Holland if he makes the team, and I suspect he will, especially if the rosters go to 50. But anybody else who still in baseball? Did anybody else go to a World Series or have, I don't know, a better season for themselves after leaving the Royals? I think of Kane and Moose and Hosmer and Wade Davis and some of the guys that we, who were huge for the Royals in 14 and 15, especially 15. But did anybody go on to have a better season than what they did for the Royals in 15?
The one guy who comes to mind is Liam Hendricks.
Liam Hendricks,
there
you go.
Pitched briefly for the team in 14. And now is sort of the best closer in baseball. But yeah,
I had forgotten he was with the Royals just for like half a season or something.
Cup of coffee, in 14. But yeah, I mean, Ryan Madsen had a run with the Dodgers where he was a useful reliever. But yeah, I mean, not a ton of guys come to mind. Billy Butler's career with the A's didn't go great. Yeah.
No. We talk about a chemistry, and I don't know. It's cliche to say they made each other better, but it just worked well. It worked well, and it was just an incredible run. I don't know if the Royals 2015 World Championship team will be looked at as one of the great teams of baseball. I doubt it. But it was different. It was fun.
Yeah.
And it was a little unusual. And they were damn good for 3 weeks in October of 2015. Andy, we can't let you go without reliving that moment in the press box. little behind the scenes, Game 5. Becoming apparent that the Royals are going to win the game. I think I've got the timing of this right.
No, it was in the 10th inning when the game went to the 10th inning. Yep.
Okay, so we don't know. So it's still right. So it's still 2-2.
It's way more problematic.
Take us through that.
I would
take a little trip down memory lane.
I would prefer to hear Sam and Vahe's version of this. Vahe's because it'll be the truth, and Sam's because it'll make me look the worst.
All right, well, let me start. I just remember him just dog cussing his computer. Just MF bomb followed by F bomb followed by MF bomb. And I remember him saying, like, not just MF in the computer, but MF in himself, all this stuff. And I just really, really losing it. And I remember,
wait a second, let me interrupt. Why would that be?
Oh, we didn't get to that. Yeah. Well, his computer fried.
I looked up, and every word in my game story, and I'd written, my game stories were like Tolstoyan in their length. My every game story of mine was longer than a speech in an Ayn Rand novel. But I looked up, and every word in my gamer had become an asterisk. Every single word had become an asterisk. And I couldn't, and I just started to have it was like the 10th inning, and I just started to have a meltdown. Yeah.
I remember I felt a little bit like a counselor or something. I remember I'm not a touchy person, but I put my hand on your shoulder, and I'm just like, come on, buddy. And you're like, it's all, and I was like, wow, okay. Well, look, the 6th inning, that's a section. Do that right now. You can do that. Just calm down. The 8th inning, that's a section. And the best part though was in the middle of all this ranting, because I don't know if the Royals, somebody just struck out or whatever, but there's this other writer in the press box just shouts over. He goes, "Calm down, it's just a game, pal."
I started to say this, Andy, but I'm going to validate Sam's version.
Oh no!
And that's how I remember it. I think I might have dared go down into the Lions there, and then it was quickly rebuffed. My suggestion was probably even more inflammatory. We'll just start with the first sentence.
Yeah.
But I do want to say this, and maybe this is a little bit of a parallel to covering that team. Andy had quite a comeback. And that I would point out Andy's eventual final game story to anybody on earth who wants to see what the consummate perfect game story on the most meaningful moment in decades is. It was unbelievably good.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It reappeared at some point, right? I mean, the typed words did reappear somehow. Who got in?
No, I mean,
he started over.
I give all the. I mean, honestly, it's as much as it pains me to do this, I give all the credit in the world to Sam for talking me through it, because he really did. He was like, "All right, buddy. Well, okay, so Matt Harvey was in this game, but now he's not. Maybe you can write a little bit about how that happened, and you should do a little bit on that. And then, hey, guess what? They tied it. Maybe you can do some play-by-play on what happened during that play." And I also remember at some point Chris Fickett, our intrepid sports editor who was there, kind of came down and was like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And I was like, "We're all like, it's all effed. Like, we can't do it. You know, the story's gone. Tell Fannin that like he's not going to have it for the front. We got to get something else on the front." And just total panic or whatever. And Chris went back and called Mike, the exec editor, and basically told him like, "Yeah, so Andy's in some trouble." And Mike told him in no unharsh terms that I needed to produce that story, or we were all going to be in some trouble. And Chris very smartly did not communicate that message. So I was actually working under the pretense where it's like, it's fine. They got to figure it out. Just get it all back together and you'll be fine. You don't need to hit deadline. You'll be all right. And luckily, I was unaware that they were having a meltdown on the other end, waiting for my gamers. So, yeah, man, that was a good one.
I would add this. Like a lot of people may or may not remember that game went 12 innings. It's good that it went 12 and not 10. That was productive time.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, that the 10th and 11th inning. I mean, God bless Luke Hochevar for his scoreless work, because that's how we got there. Is the Royals just like blanked them for a couple innings, and by the time like the 12th rolled around, like I pretty much had it almost all up and running again. So. But yeah, that was not a fun hour. That was not a fun hour for sure.
Glad I was in the auxiliary press box down in the outfield. In the outfield at that time. So. All right. Well, hey Andy, it's been great catching up with you. I appreciate you spending some time with us. It's always fun to hear from Vahe and Sam. And Sam, we had to bleep you out a little earlier, so
yeah, thanks for doing that, buddy.
So let me just say you can talk that trash on Mellinger Minutes for your ears, but on SportsBeat KC, pal, you better come clean.
I did a good job with the F and the MF the first round, and then I just lost it there for a second.
Then it got real.
Yeah.
Mellinger Minutes for the ears.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks a lot. Great talking to you.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. This was fun.
See you, dudes.
Yeah.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Savannah Smith, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. A tip of the cap to Sam Mellinger, Vahe Gregorian, and our old friend Andy McCullough, who's doing terrific work for The Athletic. We'll link to his latest story in the show notes and also our coverage of the Royals World Series review. Hey, earlier in the episode, you heard me talk about the Sports Pass offer. It still stands. It's still a good one. $30 for a year's worth of sports coverage, and that includes the Sports Extra on the e-edition. Here's an even better offer. Buy the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports, news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus extra pages of news, sports, and business coverage. The details can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. That's account.kansascity.com/subscribe. Whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening.